Then if you haven't smiled, then you haven't smiled, then you go, you really look like an old man on the table. And then someone else in the garden outside, and that was much better. I saw the outside light, I didn't see the inside light. February 1st, huh? Oh, thank you. I'm usually on nights on Thursdays.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus.
Good morning. We'll start the day with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the first day of February. We need to change our calendar. And so, 2018, my name is Kevin Cook. I currently serve as the chair of the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. Joining me today is Commissioner Shelley Bueller. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Bob Archer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, our first item.
Item 2, unfinished business. Number 1, consider approval of master plan for Kansas Expo Center renovations.
Commissioners, this was an item that we had deferred taking any action on. We've had 2 prior discussions of the master plan and wanted to kind of look to see maybe some other developments, take some time to meet with HTK, the architects and our consultants, also maybe look at some financing and look at what our projected budget might be. And so I've asked if Chuck Smith and Betty Greiner could both kind of address the commission before we get into our discussion.
Sure.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chuck Smith, HTK Architects. So, since the last meeting, we've had the opportunity to spend time to evaluate some continued discussion related to options, where the master plan sits, what its intent is, what some budget concerns or budgetary options that we might find with that, and I think we've probably, at the best at this point, been able to successfully address those types of questions and concerns. I think the point to understand, again, is that we're really have developed a master plan. We've set a program in place that identifies all the parts and pieces and an anticipated amount of money that would be needed to resolve some of those parts and pieces. We're not in this process approving a specific plan. That yet comes with schematic design, and during that schematic design process, we will address a number of options and issues on how we can resolve all the problems and fit all the program pieces together as best as possible within a budget. So it's kind of where we're at right now, as we're ready to, push the gas down and get into this thing and really resolve, if you will, solve the problem at hand, which is the program elements.
I know that in my discussion with you, you had indicated that while there are pictures and some drawings in the master plan, that those pictures are more just to kind of talk about the different design elements rather than a specific plan. Is that accurate? That's
an accurate statement. So the idea is just as one snapshot out of many, is like, this is what that could take on in terms of a physical presence, but not the specific design.
Okay. So as the commission at this point, if we were building a house, you would need us to tell us what design elements we need in the house, what some of our required elements of the house may be, but as to what the house will actually look like would come at a later point.
Correct. We're at that point where we've determined what your house's parts and pieces are going to be and what the anticipated budget is, and we need to move forward with that and get into design.
And then, Commissioner Archer, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Now, I'd be interested to see where we are as far as the conceptual design, the framework, and the money we're talking about.
Absolutely. I know there are a number of design ideas and solutions on how we address actually in design address the different issues, and they're all going to be vetted, and they're all going to have their pros and cons listed on them, and we're going to make sure we bring forth an option or two, maybe even 3 for consideration through this process so we can appropriately design the solution. So.
And then will we also have opportunity for continued feedback from everybody involved, our partners, as well as the individuals that use the Expo Center, the equine facility, continue to have conversations with everybody in the community.
Absolutely. I mean, that's paramount to get our user groups in and our people that not only use the facility but rent and develop programs and events on those to really understand function and flow and adjacencies and those kind of things. Of course, revenue generation obviously is important too. So,
One other thing, and I think to some degree our thoughts have been around this multi-purpose building, and from what I understand, the thinking has evolved on what that should be, the size and so on, where it should be located, and I think that's going to be a key element in coming up with the conceptual framework, and we get into that discussion, particularly how much that darn thing's going to cost, and if we didn't do it, how that would free up money for other opportunities.
absolutely, we'll study all of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions?
So is the appropriate motion to move approval of the balanced approach for the master plan of the Kansas Expo Center renovations? That includes the equine and the arena improvements,
Correct.
correct? So not just...
One or the other,
both.
but right, correct.
Okay,
So if-
I will make that motion.
Okay. There's been a motion then made to adopt a balanced approach, which in the master plan, I think is even, it's called the recommended scenario balanced, just as we reference back to our master plan.
Correct.
And I would second that motion to adopt a balanced approach at this time.
Well, I think that's a little premature, in my view. I'd like to hear more information from Chuck and Betty as far as what the overview is going to look like and what the money's going to be.
Right.
I mean, I agree that we're going to take a balanced approach, but I think I'd like to hear more information from HTK and from our finance director before I vote on that motion.
Okay.
Okay.
So there are a number of options, solutions, or different ideas that have been discussed that we're going to address during the schematic design process, and those different solutions would address concerns about the location of the multipurpose. Is it indeed both a multipurpose for flat floor space or a stalling facility? And as you mentioned, it's kind of in the middle of that. And as we start to study that particular thing, it will have financial impacts on how it gets moved around on the site, and it'll also have function impacts on how it can serve the program needs of both the land and arena and the equine events stuff. So it'll be a lot of, through the design process, there'll be a lot of time spent trying to resolve all those and find the best place. The further away we get from kind of the concept of being south of Landon and going north, the functionality as a multi-purpose facility becomes maybe less effective, and the costs potentially go up for some of the construction issues that we have over there at the 30,000 master planning level. If we move west in alignment, if you will, with the equine facility, with that entire facility, the functionality and improvement obviously is better for equine specific, but its effectiveness as flat floor space and multipurpose space becomes less relevant in there. So finding during the design process that fine tune of that, and whether or not we can fit in the budget or we have to make a budget adjustment, whether it's within the program elements of the balanced approach or with other types of scenarios is what we'll be challenged with during schematic design.
Chuck, I'm sorry, Commissioner, if I may just... Sure. There's some unknowns, aren't there, at this time with the physical, where the building sits? And could you just address what some of those unknowns may be?
So we could have the best solution at the master plan level we want. What we do know, for instance, a good unknown is what happens geotechnically with the site. We do know with the site, the further south you move on the site towards the Shunga Trail, the greater risk that you have for having a substantial unknown cost for footing the building. The further north you go away from the Shungo Trail, that improves. How much that improves is a cost percentage is kind of that unknown. You could have the best best place location if you want, be it the south, as an example, directly south of Landon, and you could start drilling your exploration holes in there, and you could find out that you don't have as what might have been anticipated for geotechnical ability to support the building, and have to change your entire thought just because of budgetary constraints. So we have to address a lot of that during schematic design as well. So,
And that's because there's a level of shale that runs directly next to the expo center, and that shale drops off dramatically the further south you go.
as it enters the creek bottom, it gets lower and lower and lower. In fact, pretty much sand, if you will, which is not great.
And if we get into a completely sand area, what might that do to our design or our costs?
Substantially increase cost and potentially need to move or find another location for whatever facility might be planned in that area, because we could not potentially withstand the cost increase within the budget.
And we won't know that at this point.
No. We have a basic understanding of what the geotechnical profile looks like on the site from previous projects that we've done there, including the existing expo center and some of the barning facilities, stalling facilities. So we understand what that generally looks like, and we can describe that. But until we start drilling holes in the areas that we're specifically going to build the building, you have that kind of wild card out there.
And your firm, weren't they the original builders or designers of the expo center?
Correct.
And what were some of the difficulties you encountered the first time around? Do you recall?
Drilling holes in the ground, subsoil explorations. And so the foundations for the facility are fairly substantial. The upside of it is the facility has stood its ground, if you will, and performed very well, and is a founded building. So,
Commissioner?
The estimate to build this multi-purpose is in the $4 to $5 million range.
correct.
What if we didn't build it at all? What if we took those dollars, put it into deferred maintenance, put it into enhancements in Landon? I mean,
Sure.
in my looking at it, it looks like there'd be more payoff to doing that instead of getting into some, we don't know what we're getting into and trying to build this so-called multi-purpose building.
Sure.
Are you going to give us that alternative?
Yes. So the notion will be, as we come up with these alternatives and look at it, how we try to solve the program elements in the master plan.
Right.
The notion would be, as we start to shift away from what's already illustrated in the balanced plan, that we will take another look at what that resulting factor is for both revenue generation and economic development, right? So we're trying to understand that if we make a move or a shift substantial from the balanced approaches that's presented in the master plan, that we would know what that impact or consequence would be in the overall picture of financial performance.
Okay.
And I might add, I think that's what we did throughout the whole process with the
Correct.
committee. Every time we made an adjustment, we asked to have that modeled
Right.
in the impact numbers. So, Chuck, can I ask you, what kind of updates will the commission receive from here on out?
Yeah.
I know when we've had another big project in our community, the commission had updates maybe on a monthly basis. I don't know. I mean, that might be something that as we engage the public still and keep us informed.
Yeah.
What can we do?
I've already
around that?
begun to think about that, and I'd
Okay.
like to find a way that we can engage the commission, whether it's publicly and through a series of workshops or those types of things, engage in the process so that you guys, have, as a body, have a good understanding of the concerns, the issues, and the problems that we're trying to solve through the design process, instead of it being that large chunks of time that pass that go
Yeah.
along the way. I think it's going to be important that we communicate. And not only that, if you're not present, be able to communicate kind of what the content of a meeting was and major decisions that were discussed.
On a timeline for us, if you get a direction from the commission today that says we would like to see a balanced approach, knowing that there may be some fine-tuning, we may abandon a multipurpose building, we may move a multipurpose building, we may redesign the equestrian events or the equestrian areas as we go into the schematics. What would be the next step for you timeline-wise? When would you be able to come back with these first drawings, schematics, or proposals?
So I'd like to see us get through our schematic design as a completion of schematic design in the next 3 to 4 months at the most. But I'd like us to be able to engage with the commission about that process prior to that, even if we can do it at monthly intervals, some point along the way where we can keep you as a body up to date with what's going on and get your feedback. And I know it's difficult to do outside of this chamber as a body, so we'd be looking, and there's a number of things that we need to address right off the bat. There's some deferred maintenance things we need to we're challenged with the existing facilities that we need to determine how we're going to address those and how those impact budget. We need to determine our schedule. We need to determine our what some of these challenges for continuous operation may present in terms of our design solutions and those types of things at a micro level and get down out of the master plan level. So.
Commissioner Bueller, I think that when we were working with the Willard Bridge, we had made about every third Thursday discussion of Willard Bridge. Would it be your thought to maybe adapt that same kind of policy for the Expo Center where every third Thursday, the third Thursday of the month, we would be talking about the Expo Center and how it's coming along?
That'd be perfectly great for me.
Commissioner Archer, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach.
Okay. Before we take up the motion,
Okay.
let's talk about the money.
Yes, well, as you know, we have a set amount of $45 million for this project, which includes any financing costs we will have. In order to do all of the project up front, rather than spreading it over the, 15 years of the sales tax, we will need to bond part of it. We will have about $6 million that we can just have in cash from cash flow, that's sales tax that'll be coming in that has been coming in, and also that will continue to come in until we start this project. So we will have about $39 million that we will be able to spend for debt service on this. That will include the financing costs as well as what we have to use for the project. Right now, we are in the process of the bonding for this. You have approved that. The second publication of that was on the 29th. So we are in the 30-day waiting period. That 30-day waiting period will be over March 1st. And if nothing changes during that waiting period, then we will try to go out for bonding just as soon as possible after that. Our bond counsel has been working on all the documents, getting them all ready so that when that waiting period is over, he is ready to issue those documents. The investment bankers are ready to issue that. One of the things that by working with one investment banker, they can watch the rates and the demand, the supply, all of those items. And, these rates can change daily. So then they can really watch and see when is the best day to hit the market. And John MacArthur, who we work with, has been very good to work on our behalf to get us the best rates possible. Interest rates are inching up a little bit, so that's something we'll have to watch. One of the things that we did in our committee when we came up with all of the costs, they have been prioritized. So if a bid comes in, we've kind of set our top priorities down to the lowest priorities. So if the bids come in higher or lower, we can add or subtract items that we can afford to complete. It'll be the same way with the financing costs. If those come in a little higher or a little lower, then we will be able to maybe add a project that was below our line, or the other way around. So we've really tried to work at this as a workable document, and that can be flexible as these costs and as our bids for construction come in and we actually know what our costs are. So it's a little different situation with the flat amount that we have to spend. And Another thing, too, has been my concern is that we have enough contingency in this. There again, by having this prioritized process, we can see how those major items are coming, and if we need to adjust something else, we have it set so that we know exactly where we cut.
So, moving forward, in the next 30 days, by March 1st or shortly thereafter, we will know exactly what money we have available for the project.
That's correct.
And that's mainly going to be determined by our market, whether as the market goes up, interest rates generally would follow.
Yes.
And so, at this point, we want the market to not accelerate too much.
Or at least the
Commissioner
bond
Archer's
market. At least the bond market. As the stock market increases, the bond market usually follows, but there is a little bit of a lag, and certainly not to the extent of the stock market.
Okay.
Any other questions on the finance side?
But once we get our number set, then we go through the schematic design, knowing those design elements, knowing exactly what we would then be doing as we move forward on this balanced approach, what we have to work with.
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, we would, as our estimated numbers, but as, we all know, sometimes the bids will come in hopefully lower than has estimated, and sometimes they come in higher, so then may have to adjust again as those actual bids come in.
Later in our agenda, we're going to be talking about excess reserves.
Yes.
And if we were to take up excess reserves and looking at part of that going to a deferred maintenance item at the Expo Center, how would that affect this?
Well, that could take an item completely off of a list of the list of these items that would be paid for by this project cost and would be paid separately. So it would increase the items that you could spend or that you could include in this project by covering those deferred maintenance items by reserves that we have, excess reserves.
Commissioner Bueller, any questions? Commissioner Archer, any questions?
No, and I think we've got a motion on the table, and if, for clarification, and I want to ensure for the record that we will have an option that says we don't have to have this multi-purpose building, and if we don't have it, those funds that would be dedicated to that can be used for deferred maintenance, below-the-line items, and so on. So as long as that is an understanding, I'll support the balanced approach that we're talking about.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy during this process to explore that option and get the feedback, the financial performance feedback on it, so you can make a decision on how that's overall impacts the facility.
Yeah,
And I
because-
think that's key, the financial performance, if that component is not there. I go back to when Populous was here and the discussion about multi-purpose and expanding, not just equine, but that we can have a multi-purpose facility for sporting and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I would need to see the financial impact to it, too. Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
that your understanding as well?
That's
that-
my understanding, yes.
Okay.
But to get you started down that road of a balanced approach, yeah, I think we need to move forward.
And that's your understanding as well. So we're starting down the road, but we're not into the fine details or a set design schematic today.
Yeah, as long as the understanding is we can see the payoff for this multi-purpose, wherever it's located, or not having it in total. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So much like 3 years ago, we're building a bridge. How we get there is yet to be determined. But we're renovating the Expo Center. So there's been a motion made for adopting a balanced approach by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Before we depart this item and move on to the next, I do want to allow any member of the public that wishes to address the commission at this point. This would be an opportunity to add input, knowing full well that there's going to be other opportunities as we continue to move forward into the actual specific design elements of the Expo Center.
I'm just going to flip the calendar. So we can see that. Will we get an update on the third Thursday in February?
Coming back, the third Thursday would be February the 15th. Okay. Is there anybody wanting to speak at this time? All right. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And please, continue to have input not only to the commission, but with HTK, with our partners in this, and with the Expo Center, Spectrum Management, so that we can have this full input from everybody. So the more people we have around the table, the better the approach will, the end product will be. Thank you. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion made to approve the consent agenda as presented by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
We have vouchers totaling $1,335,339.36. The largest amount is to JADO, $651,595.27. Next is Capers, $345,334.70. And then holding accounts with the state, $113,792.64. And I have no questions. Move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the vouchers by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move approval of the correction orders.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Health Department, number 1, consider approval of the elimination of an Account Clerk 2 position and reclassification of a Supervisor to a Billing Office Manager 2, and the remaining Account Clerk 2 to an Account Clerk 3 with a savings of $35,181 per year.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Edith Matthews, the Finance Officer with the Health Department. And in our billing office, we have 2 positions that were not adequately described in their position descriptions, and so we are asking to reclassify those. One of them is a union position, Account Clerk 2, that we are asking to move to an Account Clerk 3. And the total salary for that would be $46,638,000 for the year. The other one is the supervisor, the billing services manager, the business services manager. We're asking to move to a billing office manager 2 at a total salary of $71,073. Both of these positions are budgeted in our 2018 budgets. And we have discussed these positions with the Human Resources Department, and they were in agreement that the positions were not accurately described in their duties. And these 2 positions, this reclassification would create efficiencies in the department because we have a vacant position that has been unfilled for several months that we would eliminate.
So there are 3 things then being requested. The first would be to eliminate an Account Clerk 2 position.
Yes,
And that is not a filled position at this time?
it is not.
Okay. And then we would be then asking to move a supervisor from supervisor to billing office manager 2.
Yes,
And is that a filled position at this time?
it is.
Okay. And then is that a union position or classified, unclassified?
That's a classified position.
Okay. And then the third is to change an Account Clerk 2 to an Account Clerk 3.
Yes,
And then is that a classified or unclassified position?
that's a union position.
And has that been reviewed and discussed with our union representatives?
It has.
And has there any feedback from them for, against, or other?
I believe they are in agreement.
Okay. And this has also been reviewed with Angela Lewis with our HR department?
It has,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Bueller, any questions?
No, I will note that that's a savings of $35,181 a year, so I appreciate you all looking at those
Thank you.
positions.
Commissioner Archer, any questions?
That's a savings of $35,181 per year.
Well, I think that it's good to look at the savings, but it's also good to look at what the job descriptions are and what the needs of the department are, making sure that we are doing what we need to be doing, but that also frees up that money for other positions, looking at those job descriptions. And I think that, Linda, you've done a great job as Director of the Health Department in continuing to evaluate our job descriptions and making sure that we're operating at peak efficiencies. So,
Move approval.
Well put. Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B2, consider approval of consent to assignment with Iron Mountain Information Management LLC due to their acquisition of Stax LLC and the authorization and execution of contract C44-2018 with Iron Mountain for continued information management services, including file storage, shredding, and file relocation, etc.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oakes from the Health Department. This agreement would continue the storage of our medical records and other documents that we have, and the shredding services that we have been receiving from Stax, who used to be Jayhawk Storage, and now they've been acquired by Iron Mountain. So we are required to keep medical records a certain amount of time. We go by the Kansas Historical Society guidelines, and so we still have a lot of medical records on paper. We're moving to, as you know, we're looking at electronic medical records, and we're moving that way. It's a slow process, so we still have some storage to do. So this agreement would continue the same cost for the next year and the same services. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We ensure that all HIPAA regulations are followed and that there's no personal data that would fall out or otherwise be compromised.
That is correct. They did sign a business associate agreement, so they are required to follow the same HIPAA guidelines that we are.
Any other questions regarding this?
Move to approve the contract.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Our next item.
Item C, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider approval of request to fill a vacant position of Fleet Services Supervisor at a salary including benefits of $64,666.99.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. This is a position that's been open for a while. We've had a person serving in that role on an interim basis, but after consultation with Angela Lewis at the Human Resources, we've want to open this position up, advertise, and fill it.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve that request.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, John. Our next item.
Item B, Administrative Services. Number 1, discussion of excess reserves.
Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. Our fund balance policy for the county determines the goal that we would like to have for each of our fund balances. For the general fund, it has determined that our goal is 25% of the most recently approved general fund balance, which would be our 2018 budget. I'm sorry, our general fund budget. That would be the 2018 budget. It also lays out the procedures if you as a commission would want to use some of those excess fund reserves. The 25% of the 2018 budget would be $26,258,993. At the end of 2016, our reserves for the general fund were $33,655,441. Now, we have ended the year of 17, but the numbers are not all in and not final. I'm estimating that we will probably have an excess of revenue over expenses of about $300,000 to add to those reserves, but that number is not definite yet. There are still numbers coming in as far as like fourth quarter franchise taxes are still coming in, some of those other items like that. So that is an estimate at this point in time. So what I would really suggest as being prudent, since those are estimates and it's not a significant amount of money in the scheme of a $105 million budget, I would say that we look at the excess reserves as of December 31st of 2016. That amount is $7,396,448. And that is the money that you could look at, whether you wanted to use it for something or not. I also have the fund balance policy here, and it does specify what those excess monies can be used for. And I will just read that. It says, in the event the fund balance exceeds the goal as defined above, the excess may be used in one or a combination of the following ways. A, debt service. B, one-time expenditures that do not increase recurring operating costs and that cannot be funded through current revenues. Strong emphasis will be placed on one-time uses that reduce future operating costs. C, establishment of or increases in reserves for equipment replacement, capital projects, emergencies, or disaster recovery. I will just mention on this, the first one that it mentions is debt recovery. We can only pay excess money into debt to pay down debt at call dates. So that is not something that we are allowed to do on a regular basis because of the call dates that come on those debt instruments. So that is the information I have for you. I would like to suggest that if we look at using excess reserves, it would be my recommendation that we look at deferred maintenance items. That would fall within our criteria, and I think that is something that we have a need for in the county.
Betty, is just to kind of go back and recap, at the end of 2018, I know everything is not yet completely finalized, but
17?
That's right, for 2017. For 2017, everything's not yet finalized.
Right.
But we're looking at income over expenses of about $300,000,
Yes, that's correct.
which is a really relatively small amount when you consider the overall budget.
Yes, it very is. And that does say that our budgeting was accurate, because we budgeted to have zero left. So I would say, as a percentage-wise, I'd say that means that our budgeting was a success, that we came in very close to what we had estimated.
Okay. But it also would signal that when we get to 2019, a year from now, we're not going to be looking at $7 million in excess reserves.
Correct. Well, unless you don't spend any of this.
Unless we don't spend any of this. But
Yes.
But while we might have roughly $7 million over the 25%, this isn't going to be something that we would be doing every year, probably, at this amount.
No, and I'll remind you, too, as you know, 2018 is a year that we will see the largest increases in our employee compensation. So we have budgeted for that, but that means it is going to be a tight year for departments.
I think that's good for us to remember that while we do have some excess reserves, we do need to keep an eye on our operating budgets.
Yes.
Commissioners, it would be my proposal that we look at the excess reserves, transferring $6 million of our excess reserves, knowing that we do have up to $7 million, but that we only transfer $6 million at this time, and that we would use $2 million for deferred maintenance at the Expo Center. Those items to be brought back to the commission for approval at a later time, and then $4 million for Parks and Recreation for deferred maintenance, with those to be brought back at a later time. And both of those bodies have advisory boards that could vet the specific projects to bring them back to the commission. And that would be my motion at this time.
I'll second.
Commissioner Archer?
Wouldn't it make sense to wait until we see what the numbers are from the Expo Center? I mean, just to willy-nilly say $2 million, I don't know that at this point is appropriate. Betty, what do you think?
Well, one of the things we had discussed, where we're looking at specific deferred maintenance items that we believe are going to come up pretty soon. One of them is the HVAC system, which I know Spectra came in and did a complete facility audit. That is one of their concerns this spring. Another one is the boiler, that the boiler is also an item that is going to have to be addressed fairly quickly. Those two, and then some lighting items would come up to about $2 million. Those are probably items that are going to have to be addressed sooner rather than later, regardless of whether they're paid out of reserves or whether they're paid out of the project money for the Expo Center. That's kind of where we had discussed and came up with the $2 million.
And Commissioner, I know that Kellen's here from the Expo Center. If he can kind of maybe address the boiler and the HVAC. I know that he and I have had discussions about those as we're looking towards the spring and what maybe is coming down the road in the next 6 months to 8 months.
Thank you, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Inspector of Venue Management, the Kansas Expo Center. Yes, in regards to some of the deferred maintenance items that are of concern to our operational needs of the facility, those do surround around the areas of HVAC and the boiler. Just to give you an update, since Spectra has been there, we have had HVAC failure in the Expo Hall once, and we've had boiler failure twice. That's a substantial amount of failure to have in 4.5 short months. So we're concerned that if those projects don't get some immediate attention, that it could cause additional costs in the future. The other aspect of making sure that we can take care of these deferred maintenance items now is that it gives us an opportunity to reduce our operational costs with those units as they operate at a higher efficiency level. That would also include the conversion from the metal halide lighting that is currently in the Expo Hall and the Landon Arena to an LED conversion, which would also be a cost savings from the operational cost.
Commissioner Arthur?
If I may, but Betty just told us that there was $6 million of cash flow now. Is that correct? So we could go ahead and pay for those items that are...
Yes, that is correct.
So,
Yes.
again, I don't know today why we need to say $2 million for the Expo, $4 million for Parks and Rec, when we really don't have a substantial plan, I don't think, from Parks and Rec on how that money would be spent. Am I off base here?
Well, I think the deferred maintenance at the Expo Center is how much total? Almost $11 million?
$11 million is
Right.
the total
Right.
deferred maintenance for the Expo Center.
And I think, given, going back to the strategic plan and the presentation we had from the advisory board, the deferred maintenance items total how much with Parks and Recreation?
About 18.
Yeah, 18 million.
So I think the need is definitely established, so. I mean, it will still come back to the commission and still have that guidance of the commission on what projects to go to, but as far as setting aside that portion of money.
I guess the problem I have, that a lot of times needs expand to fill what money's available. And I don't want to make commitments where money may not be needed until we get some final numbers or some good estimates. That would be my only point.
Commissioner,
Does that make sense?
I would have maybe a thought or a proposal
Okay.
in that regards. If we were to look at transferring $6 million from the excess reserves and placing it into a deferred maintenance, or to set it aside for deferred maintenance, for that alone,
And then we could divvy it out.
and then we
as-
could divide it out.
As appropriate.
As appropriate, either between the Expo Center or Parks and Rec, but just for deferred maintenance. Would that,
We don't have a funding source for Parks and Recreation for deferred maintenance. We have $45 million from the sales tax, the graciousness of the taxpayers, but I would say that we need to put at least $4 million into Parks and Recreation on deferred maintenance. That isn't even new projects. That's just getting some things up to the standard that we believe they should be.
And I guess what I hear from Commissioner Archer is, rather than us committing the $2 million immediately to the Expo Center, knowing that we have cash flow of $6 million, knowing where exactly that would fall. It may be that it would be, Commissioner Archer, you may be outvoted at some later point.
It's happened before, Commissioner.
But to set it aside for deferred maintenance being,
Well, and I think that's smart, and depending on the wizardry of our finance director, we may have $6 million to allocate to Parks and Rec. I'd like to see that, because the master plan told us we were $18 million in the hole. So if we can do what we can do at the Expo Center within the sales tax money, and then use all the reserves for Parks and Rec, that may be an option. That may work out. I don't know. That's why I will support putting $6 million in reserve and then determine how it should be spent as we move forward with our projects.
but again, asking both of the advisory boards, Parks and Rec and the Expo Center, to come back with those needs and specifics, so for us to address. Would that be appropriate, then follow up, Commissioner Archer?
Well, Chuck's nodding, so I think,
I see Jim Martin also nodding.
okay. Yes.
Can I ask for a clarification, though, that it would only be for deferred maintenance for Parks and Rec or for the Expo Center? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
I think so.
yes. So rather than having a specific dollar amount, 2 million or 6 million, Commissioner Bueller.
It was
it's
your
my
motion.
I am amending my motion to be for deferred maintenance for the Parks and Recreation and the Expo Center without a specific dollar amount. But it would be $6 million for deferred maintenance to either Parks and Recreation or the Kansas Expo Center. And that is my motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Archer. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item 5, administrative communications.
Any persons wishing to address the commission, this is your opportunity.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby with Parks and Rec. I got a couple quick announcements. This Saturday is the Polar Plunge. It's one of our special events out at Lake Shawnee. All the funds go to Special Olympics. It's a great day to be out there. Registration starts at 9:30 in the morning. And they also have a run or walk. They call it the Strut Run. It starts at 11, and they have a costume contest starting at 11:15, and then the plunge at noon. And I do hear they're looking for celebrities, such as county commissioners, maybe, to participate in this. I know somebody doesn't ever do the balloon, but
Not going to happen.
not going to happen. My other announcement would be that I'm real pleased to announce that we filled the position of Professional Development Superintendent with Olivia Mayer. Olivia's worked with our department for many years, and I'm very proud of her. She's started at entry level and is now up to a superintendent. That position is going to focus on professional development as well as customer service and kind of be our liaison with human resources. So I know she's going to do a great job. So
Great.
thank you.
Congratulations, Olivia.
My name is Carol Marple. You've heard from me before. I want to say that I have a real problem with the motion that you just passed. As I recall, in 2017, Commissioner Archer, we discussed the excess funding, and it was, I thought, presented that there would be some public hearings so that you could hear from the public as to how they would like the excess funding spent, as I recall. We also, there was some discussion about perhaps not spending it all in 1 year and carrying it on for a couple of years. I am not going to say that deferred maintenance is not important, because I do believe it very much so is. I have a big problem with spending $2 million on the expo when the taxpayers have already given you $45 million to update the expo. I am totally against that, and I see no reason for it. There are other places I think the public would like to see the excess funding go, and I think you just took away a right that they have to have input from this. They are the ones that pay these taxes, and they need to be included in this decision. I think it was not a good decision, and if the public wants to spend $4 million with Parks and Rec, so be it. But they need to be included in the decision. I am just not in agreement at all with the decision that you made, and I would like to see the public, the taxpayer, have input on the excess money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block, Public Works and Solid Waste. I just want to mention a couple of events we have coming up. This Saturday is the first Saturday of the month, so we will have our household hazardous waste collection this Saturday from 9 to noon at 131 Northeast 46th Street. Again, that is our household hazardous waste facility, and that is about a quarter mile to the east of the roundabout at 46th and Topeka Boulevard. And again, it's free collection of household hazardous waste, including oils, paints, herbicides, pesticides, fluorescent light bulbs, that nature, free to county residents. And then also, the Solid Waste Department is going to be hosting a tire collection event on April 28th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And this location will be at the Shawnee County North Annex, and that is at 1515 Northwest Saline. And we will be collecting up to 5 tires per resident, and we're only taking passenger and small truck tires. We will not be taking large truck or tractor tires. But anyway, I just want to give a heads up. But that is coming up in April, and we'll be having a tire collection event. Thank you very much.
Morning, Commissioners. Linda Oaks from the Health Department. We still have plenty of free flu vaccine available. I heard a great quote we know we've had a lot of media that this vaccine may not be as effective. It's only maybe about 35% effective. And if we told you you could get a lottery ticket and you have a 35% chance of winning, you'd probably go out and buy it. So I think this is a good shot to get. I think it's good protection. It may not completely protect you from getting the flu, but it may help you from getting quite so sick. So right now, 6.6% of the population in Kansas has flu-like symptoms, and that is much higher than last year. So I really encourage everyone to get a flu shot. They're free at the 2115 Southwest 10th Clinic during regular clinic hours for children or adults. And so please come see us and get your shot. Wash your hands. Stay home if you're sick. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Larry Moss, Shawnee County Treasurer. As you know, we did tax collection in December, and I'd like to say thank you to the taxpayers of Shawnee County. As usual, they paid their taxes. We do have a few people, though, that are delinquent. So this month, we'll be sending out second notices to remind them that they owe taxes. Having said that, the scammers are very aware of that, and so they are active, and we've had some folks come into our office who have been contacted by scammers and threatened if they don't pay their taxes. Let me say that we only remind people to pay their taxes through official correspondence. We don't do text messages, we don't send emails, and we certainly don't do unsolicited calls. And our correspondence will never threaten legal action or sending you to jail. So if you get such a correspondence, let us know. But don't give anyone any money before you talk to us, okay? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kim Phillips. I work here in your office, and I wanted to remind everybody that February is the month for the big Project Topeka Community Food Drive. Project Topeka here in Shawnee County helps seven different food pantries here in Shawnee County. Many large companies and corporations are actively collecting for this wonderful project to feed those in need here in Shawnee County. Employees here at the county are collecting non-perishable foods and donations for Project Topeka. Last year, we raised over $8,000 here in Shawnee County and hope to top that total this year. We hold a sculpture contest countywide where we arrange the food items collected in a creative manner and that the department with the most creative / appealing sculpture is awarded a trophy. That challenge is on. The health department is trying to defend their award, and we're up to it, okay? We also hold an employee online auction for items donated by employees and area businesses to help out with our total donation. We are soliciting donations for the auction now and welcome them coming into our office right here, where they're on display in our lobby. Individual and county courthouse departments are holding fundraisers, and we're excited to be part of this worthy cause this year. If you have any questions or donations, please call me at 251-4040. Okay, any questions?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I don't come here today as the department director. I come here today because I think everybody knows last weekend we had a tragic accident of Abigail Medley. See, Abigail was a player of mine in soccer. She was a sister. She was a best friend. She was a daughter. She was a silent leader on our team, and no coaching manual, no training, no licensing that I've got ever prepared me for the day that I got this call. I'm still in shock and disbelief. I am about positive in knowing that that Abigail is in a very good place. This has deeply saddened our soccer community, our community in Washburn Rural. And I just ask that everybody please keep their family in your thoughts and prayers. Hug your kids. Tell them you love them before they go to school, they go somewhere. And this is just difficult for me. So I just wanted to say to everybody that please remember this family. I know that there's a family gathering tonight. Her favorite color is yellow, which I'm wearing. I know Washburn Rural School is going to be doing a lot of different things on Friday, and the funeral is on Saturday. But I'm not here to cause heartache or sadness. It's just to remember this young girl and all of our young kids that have lost their lives in tragic accidents. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Very well said. And our hearts go out to Abigail, her family, her soccer team, and to you as the coach. A lot of people were impacted by such a young life, and it's good to remember to take those moments because you don't know when you'll have them again. So, any other persons to address the commission this morning? Commissioner Archer, anything?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Bueller.
I do look forward to the discussion on the reserves. I think my only point, I don't want it to get lost, is that when the taxpayers approved the vote on the Expo Center, it wasn't for deferred maintenance. It was for enhancements to the Expo Center. And so if we can help even just in a small way with some of that deferred maintenance, then those dollars go to enhancements of that facility. So I just wanted to explain my reasoning for that a little bit. Thank you.
And I agree with that. Also, when we got about the public engagement, when we get to where that $6 million would go, there would be more public engagement as to that. The Parks and Recreation Department, with their $18 million, there's a lot of needs in the Parks and Rec Department as we move forward.
Correct.
But the only thing additional I do have is that tonight is the Shawnee County Conservation District's annual banquet and meeting. Look forward to joining them and learning about more that we could do in Shawnee County when it comes to conservation efforts, and also recognizing those individuals that have taken on conservation over the last year and being recognized for their achievements. So, don't have anything further. Our next item.
Item 6, executive session.
There is not a need for an executive session today, so we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us.